So again, my name is Alexa. I'm the Special Projects Coordinator at Special Needs Cobb. We're Cobb County's original nonprofit special needs organization. We provide residential respite and resources to resource support, not only in Cobb County, but also to Metro Atlanta families with special needs members. We're joined today by Kelly Bramblett and Joy Gaines of the Cobb County School District. Kelly serves as a program support specialist, supporting special education teachers and students in the areas of assistive technology and instructional support. And Joy is also an educator and a technology training specialist. So everybody, please give them a warm welcome. And Kelly and Joy, I'm handing it over to you, and I'll see everybody else back in the Q&A.
Okay, thank you so much. We're so happy to be with y'all today. I have spent the majority of my teaching career in Cobb County teaching special education. I have taught at Burney Elementary and Kennesaw Mountain High School and Alatoona High School. And the majority of those years were teaching in the mildly intellectually disabled population. And I'll let Joy talk about her experience.
Hi, everybody. So I have spent a lot of time in the classroom as well. I actually taught kindergarten, 3rd and 5th between Milford Elementary, and also I taught at Burney Elementary. And for the past 8 years now, I have been in this role as a technology training integration specialist. So I have an awesome job where I still get my kid fix in the classroom, but I get to do even more because I get to work with teachers and leaders. So I love this role as being a tech coach in Cobb. And we're very excited today to share with you in this online safety parent workshop some great tips and resources for you all. So we'll go ahead and jump into our agenda. It's jam-packed for this session, and we are excited to share all of these things with you. So in this session, we are going to be discussing parental controls, popular apps for students. We also wanted to spend a lot of time on the communication piece. How are you all as parents going to support your kids with these important topics? And we'll end with sharing some resources to help keep your children safe. So let's begin by looking at parental controls. With the increase of technology in our children's hands, you all know as being parents that sometimes it's even hard to get the technology away from them at this point because there are so many entertaining apps out there, and a lot comes with that. So as parents, you have to keep an eye on your children and especially their digital habits. So when it comes to parenting apps, we wanted to break down these features because features among the apps go into these categories. There are apps to help you monitor web content. There's also apps that help you even monitor communication like messaging and emails. Also, we want to touch on social media, how you can monitor those because social media is huge for our students, and also tracking location. So depending on the age of your child and your level of concern, that will guide you with the right app for you and your family. Most mobile devices already have some parental controls already on them. You just have to know where to look for them. So we wanted to start by looking at the built-in parental controls that come with Apple devices because those are very popular, whether it's an iPad or an iPhone. So all of the parental controls on Apple devices can be found right under the screen time settings. So if you can find that gear, a lot of times, no matter what device you're on, that gear is always going to be for your settings. So once you have located the screen sections in your settings, you can turn features on and off and choose whether certain options are available to your child. So always look for that gear. That is your one-stop shop where you can set routines, you can set limits for how much time your kids are on devices, turn on things like focus time. So then it automatically turns off if it's within that time frame. This is also important because you can look at content and privacy issues here. You can also turn off App Store purchases in there. You can also block things like explicit content, restrict games, even if you wanted to, and also set communication limits. So this is a great area to explore and helpful when you are trying to establish routines for your children. Now, if you don't have an Apple, like me, I'm an Android person, we wanted to spend some time talking about Android devices, because even in an Android, you can still find parental controls, and this is also found in the settings too. Some settings may need to be supplemented with another app like Google's Family Link, which we will also discuss, but you want to begin by going to the gear, find the settings again, and you can type in searches. So you can search for parental controls. You can search for focus mode. Sometimes it may also be under a category called digital well-being. So again, find that gear and search for those settings. One thing that I like to do personally is turn on bedtime mode or focus, and then it will actually restrict apps, and it'll notify you also when it's time to go to bed too. In Google Play, because that is Android's version of where you go to find apps, there are also settings that you can look for under your profile. And this is important because it will allow you to decide what type of games, movies, TV shows, and even books that are available for you or your children to download. So I mentioned this a little bit earlier on the previous slide, Google Family Link. This is an option that's available. It is also free. It acts much like Apple's built-in control settings that automatically come with their Apple devices, but keep in mind, to take advantage of the Google Family Link, you have to have a Google account, so like a Gmail, which is free and also easy, and your child must also have the Google account as well. So once both of you have an account, you would be able to use this app. And this app allows you to monitor your child's activity. It also allows you to manage apps and purchases, set screen time, shut down their device, and also track their location if you find that that is needed for your child as well. So before we go into the next couple of slides, I do want to give you a quick warning that the next apps that we're going to talk about do cost money, but don't worry, we're not telling you to go out after this training and go buy any of these, but our goal was just to bring you some awareness to the fact that there are some additional parental controls available, but the ones we just talked about already are free, so you can stick with those, but we did find some other ones through research. Bark is one of those. Bark is a great app made for monitoring social media and also messaging apps. You can also set screen time. You have control of how often the students are using the app, and you can also track the location as well. The great thing is that if you were using this app, it does send you notifications if there is something as a parent that you would need attention, and draw your eye to that. The biggest downside of this app is that it only works on mobile devices, so it does not work on computers. And if you wanted more information, you could check out their website. We did find that they do allow a 7-day free trial. And if you did want to do this, you could take advantage of $14 a month or do a 1-year annual fee of $99. They do have a similar app that's called Kid Locks as well, and that allows you to filter inappropriate apps and set daily limits. It also helps you with tracking the location, but it does not monitor social media. And that one is a little bit cheaper. It's only $79. Again, that one is called Kid Locks, but again, there's free things out there. The next one that we found while researching for this training is called Qstudio. It's a similar app that again allows you to monitor. So monitor social media. It will allow you to filter inappropriate sites. You can also set daily time limits and track location. A big positive that we found with this app is that it can be used on computers and mobile devices. The downside is the cost is dependent on how many apps you're using. So the more devices you're using it on, it does get a little bit more expensive. Life 360. Now, some of you may already be using this one, and if you don't know about it, I know this is very popular amongst my friends who have teenagers who are driving, as well as I even have some teammates who use this with older parents. So Life 360 is nice because it allows you to track the location of whoever you want. So since we're talking about children today, it would allow you to track the location of your child. And it's great for, again, those students who are driving, because it will let you know when your kids are speeding. It'll also detect a crash. But I think a big point of this is you're able to keep them safe and see where they are at any time. Now, there are some free features in this, but if you want premium features, you would have to cost $10. You would have to pay, $10 a month. So this is a great one worth checking out too, that is very inexpensive, especially compared to the previous ones that we talked about. It is very, very important that as a parent or family member that you start setting routines. And this is very, very important that you allow a schedule for your students. We don't want them glued to the technology all day. I have some young ones, so I know how challenging it can be sometimes to pull them away from it, but there are many ways that you can schedule for free time, downtime, school time, even bedtime within your app settings. Setting up these routines not only helps control the children on their devices, but it also helps you to restrict what they can and cannot use during certain periods of times. And also, we wanted to mention that at the end of this presentation, we are going to share a link to resources, and included in this the resources we share is an article about some of the best parenting apps.
Yeah, I would really suggest starting early with this, setting routines, just like I would strongly encourage you to have a homework routine, a specific place that your students are going to do homework, a specific time, a routine of checking CTLS, if you're in Cobb, whatever learning management platform your school system might be using, but also really setting up a specific time for technology, because we all know technology, we don't want this to be gloom and doom, because technology can be great, but we also need to be aware of the downside of technology, right? So the sooner the better, because technology's not going away, and kids are gonna, when there's a will, there's a way. Kids are gonna find it, and they're gonna be exposed to things. So the quicker, no matter how young your student is, preschool to teens, rules and routines with technology is very important.
Yeah, and I think having those rituals and routines then transcends to balance, which is also important. So another thing that is important that you should be having conversations about is about passwords. And parents should definitely have passwords for your devices, but also for theirs too. You want to have passwords for the Wi-Fi apps and even the settings. Even though sometimes it's difficult to start creating passwords and thinking outside the box, you really do want to ensure that you are creating strong passwords. And I've been guilty of this before too, not repeating them on all the accounts that you have, because that just makes it easier for someone else to get into them or find them. So it is important that you don't repeat them on all accounts, and also that you don't give out all of the passwords to your children, especially if you don't want them to have them for long-term use. So, just share them as needed, and then change them frequently too. That's also a good idea.
Yeah, changing them is important. And even though as parents, it's so easy to just give out your password to your child. And if your kids know the word, if you use the same word for your passwords all the time, even if you don't tell your child, they're going to figure it out. They're going to figure out what mom, oh, she always uses this word for her password. She always uses my birthday. So just encouraging you to be mindful of giving. And like I said, this is sometimes difficult. It's a lot easier to use the same word. It's a lot easier to hand out the password, but we're just encouraging you to start early and have a way to manage your passwords, and think about it before you hand it out.
Yeah, like you have your children come talk to you about the password, and we're talking a lot about communication. And so that is a great way to even start a discussion on why do they need the password? And if they need it because they're downloading an app, well, which app are you downloading? So that is a great conversation starter. What are you working on? And if you find it difficult to keep up with all your usernames and passwords, you can also try, they have password manager apps too. So if you are interested in that, you could always use one of those to help you too. So thinking about common app tips and tricks, many apps already have their built-in controls. So it's just important that you are aware when visiting sites like YouTube, sometimes they have their own settings. So each different site can have their own settings. So it's nice just to, be aware of that. So you just don't assume that they're all the same, because they're not. So Instagram, we'll talk about that more later. For example, they have that vanish mode where direct messages will disappear, which is similar to Snapchat. But remember, just because they disappear, there's things like screenshots. So they may disappear from the app, but they're still there. And that's a lot of times students don't understand that. They think, well, the app told me it disappeared, so it's gone, I don't have to worry. But you still do have to be mindful of those things, but they don't know if we don't share it with them. You should also be aware that while some parenting apps, they have built-in monitoring, like in messaging apps, it still may not cover all of that app. It just may be a piece. So we'll be sharing more information in our resources for you. So now we're going to look at some popular student apps.
So this is a website that I often send to teachers, and it's great for parents too. Teachers are often asking me about what are good educational apps for me to put on a classroom iPad. Parents, this is a great website for you to use. Common Sense Media. You can filter through all sorts of media, and you can filter by grade level. You can filter by if it's free or if it costs money, and you can read reviews. So this website is gold as far as getting an idea, because things change so much. And I think sometimes teachers think, oh, Kelly and Joy will know because they work in technology. We can't keep up. I have to use this website to read reviews of new apps and find out if they're free or not. So this website is really gold.
TikTok. Now, some of you as parents and family members probably enjoy this just as much as your students do on social media. I even go on there and watch videos on topics I love, like cooking. And my family, even between my sisters, we are always sharing through text messages some of our favorite videos so we can, laugh. So TikTok does have many positive aspects of it, but there are features that families should be aware of. One thing is that there is a family pairing feature, and this allows parents to get more involved with how their teens, notice I said teens, use of this app, because they should not be on this if they are under 13. So you always want to be mindful too when your students are asking you, can I get this app? Well, is it appropriate for their age group too? So they should not be on this app if they are under 13. So family pairing enables you to have screen time management on there, and direct messaging. You can restrict some of that on TikTok. It also has restricted mode where you can restrict the appearance of inappropriate content, because remember, this is wide open. So public, there's going to be inappropriate things on there. When signing up for TikTok, just be aware that the app defaults to public user profiles. So that means that anyone can see the account until you have changed your privacy settings. So again, go back to that gear. That symbol is always going to allow you to find settings or search for privacy settings. Just like many of the other social media platforms, again, with it being public, there's going to be inappropriate things on there. So always be aware of what your kids are watching and what they're creating on there too. So be aware that this is permanent. It's going to be on there, even if people say things are disappearing. And also be aware that TikTok can also collect user data.
And just like Joy said, it's really important to know age appropriate. And if you have multiple kids in your household of all ages, lay the groundwork early. You know that we're not gonna participate with this app or this social media platform until you're a certain age and you show you're responsible. Like, I think that's an important parenting tidbit. Like, okay, you're not gonna date until you're 16 and you've shown us you've this and this responsibility wise. So it's not just about reaching that age. It's about reaching that age along with that you have shown you're responsible with your money, you're responsible with your homework, you're responsible with your grades. So it's not just, oh, I turned 16 today or 13 today, I can get on TikTok. It's you've reached that age, plus you have shown me responsibility in some other areas.
That was a great point, Kelly, about, age does not necessarily mean that they are ready for it.
Right.
Snapchat is another one that I'm sure many of you are aware of. Snapchat also allows privacy settings to be set, and that's a great thing because, again, it's public. So by using those privacy settings, that will help keep the chats clean. Now, it also helps you to monitor and use blocking certain things. So it's important, again, that you are taking time to discuss with your child about sharing and screenshots. Many students, again, believe that these videos are magically going to go away, but that's not the case. So continue monitoring how they're using it and just keep an eye out for your children.
I would say that's one of the biggest takeaways for some of these social media apps like Snapchat that our kiddos don't understand, because it disappears from their device where they can no longer see it, but they really can't understand because it's really abstract thought. It's gone from my device. So you have to remember, some of our kids struggle in the area of inferencing and that abstract thought. It's gone from my device, so it must be gone, and it's not gone. And we're going to give you some ideas of how to talk to your kids about that at the end, some objects that you can use, but just really driving home the point that we have a screenshot of things that live on forever. So it might be gone on your device. You might not be able to find it, but that image, that picture, that text, that communication is still there.
And Instagram, you all know this one too. Instagram is another popular site, and students love this one. And part of the reason they love it is because it's engaging and they get to share pictures and stories. In this app, they can also send direct messages to people and filter comments. Their location can also be identified within this app. Users can be reported and blocked, which is a positive to me about this app. And public sharing information, just like in TikTok, that's the default. So you want to make sure that you are checking the privacy settings to ensure, things are turned on or off. Also, with this app too, just keep in mind, you can know what your students' passwords are, but sometimes, especially with apps like Instagram, they think they can outsmart you. So be aware, you may think you have that Instagram account, but a lot of times they'll have a Finsta or a fake Instagram account too. They have the one that they want you to know about, and then the other one where they're doing things on too. So be aware of those things too.
Yeah, and there's apps on your phone or on their phone that can look like one thing, but something else is hidden behind that app. So they could have 2 Instagram accounts, they could have 2 Facebook accounts, one that they're maintaining that you see, and another one that you're not seeing. And parents, if this sounds overwhelming to you, I completely understand. And, I would suggest, I know when I taught high school, I would often get a trusted teenager that was in my classroom, and I would ask a teenager questions about social media, and they're sharing with me as teacher student, but then I used that information with my parenting my own biological children, because I would have another teenager, I'd have an 18-year-old explain Snapchat to me. So if my own kids were like 12, I was like already, so I encourage you to find a young person, because did not grow up in this age. And so find a neighbor, find a teenager at your church, in the community, that you can ask questions about these different kinds of apps.
And a great question came in the chat. So Emily, I do want to acknowledge it. I don't want to say your last name because I probably say it wrong, but don't worry. Like this is a lot of information. We do have a resource that we're going to share at the end. It'll be a link, and there's also a QR code that you can scan, and it has important links. There's even an app comparison chart with important things to know too. So don't worry, we've got you covered. And this is being recorded too, so you'll be able to refer back to it later. Zoom, this is a great app. I mean, it's definitely helped communication, especially during the pandemic and even after at this point. And most of the time, I think students are using this with a family member or guided support, but they can still do lots of other things with it too. So although Zoom is an excellent tool, especially for video and collaboration and seeing each other quickly at any time, anywhere, no matter where you are in the world, parents do need to know that this tool can also be used for chatting. Also, when the camera's turned on, they can share their screen or share anything that's going on in that environment. Common Sense Media, which we've talked about earlier in this presentation, and this is included on our resource guide, provides a wonderful, wonderful guide about Zoom, talking about the privacy and security. Minecraft. Now there are two different versions of Minecraft. So in Cobb, one of the things I love going in classrooms doing is using Minecraft for education. However, this is not always the app that your students have at home. So it is a great educational tool, but there's also just Minecraft. Minecraft is a tool that has lots of different purposes. A lot of kids like to go in there to build and construct worlds, but there are things that parents should know about this too. For example, in creative mode, there can be violent use. Players also have the ability to chat, and it's important for the activity to be played on a well-established server to keep predators from entering your world. So Minecraft is a fun game, but there are still things that you need to be mindful of, especially the fact that sometimes they could be playing with someone that they don't even know and they think is, another child, when it could really be an adult somewhere.
Yeah, the key on this one is there is an educational version that they've probably played at school, and just know, so you think this is great, it's educational, but just like Joy said, be mindful that they could be communicating with strangers. This is another very abstract concept for some of our students. When somebody tells me, oh, I go to high school here, I'm 17 also, but there really could be an adult. And so this, once again, some of our students struggle with abstract concepts like this. They're very concrete learners. So this is something that needs to be explained very explicitly and direct to our students.
Another popular game that we wanted to also mention is Among Us. And this has become really popular in the past couple of years. And children of all ages really like this game. But again, is it appropriate for all ages? No, it is not. You need to be aware of a parent that in this game, it is public and it can have between 4 to 10 players in that game. There's also chat involved in this game, and it works 30 seconds into the game as they are meeting. Also in this game, think about the goal of this game. When they're playing the game, they look like cute little figures, but these are crew members, and you're trying to find out the imposter, and imposters are killed during this game. Also in the game, which many games have this now, there are in-game purchases. So if you've got your card tied to it, it could be a case where because it's available, that it entices your child to, buy some things or ask, hey, mom, can I see your credit or debit card? So it's fun, but what is the messaging behind this game?
Yeah, and once again, apps will say free, but then there's in-app purchases.
Right.
So once again, this is something that has to be explained to our students, our kiddos. They say, well, but it's free, mom. Okay, but remember that it could be in-app purchases, and they could be chatting with people who are not who they say they are. Okay, so now we're going to talk about how to communicate. We've gone over a lot of overwhelming information. So the main takeaway here is talk about it. You can't, parents, crawl under a rock these days and ignore that the internet and that social media exists, right? We can't just crawl under a rock. So start talking about it, and start talking about it early. That is key with our students. Okay. Like I said, set your rules, routines, just like you would homework time. This is something that we have to tackle a little bit at a time, right? You show you're responsible with this much, and then we might have a privilege of using something else for limited amount of times. And if some of you are like me, I'm probably the oldest person on this call, but when I wanted information about something, guess where I went? The encyclopedia in my basement. That's no longer the world we live in. Now information is at your fingertips, and it's not going away. So the biggest takeaway here is tackle it head on, talk about it early.
And one thing I want to add to that too is just stay in the know. That's why the beginning of our presentation was giving you information about settings and controls and popular apps, because you as families need to be informed. Stay in the know what apps they're using, set those controls. And when possible, if you need to block something or report something, because if someone's making them feel uncomfortable, that needs to be reported. So always just be in the know.
And like I said, I made friends with teenagers. I taught at a high school, so I had plenty of teenagers that I coached tennis. So I had girls on the tennis team that I taught openly. I got information. So find a young adult, like I said, in your neighborhood, your community, at your church, and ask them because if you don't understand, they understand a lot more. Somebody who's willing to communicate with you. Once again, one of the biggest takeaways that's difficult for our students with is that idea of abstract thought, that I could be interacting with someone that's not who they say they are. That's a hard idea for a lot of our kids to swallow. But we have to teach them about that explicitly. So like I said, and talk often. And if they don't feel comfortable talking to you, or you don't find a trusted adult that they can go to and ask questions, or explain to, or a trusted adult that could look at their social media with them and give them advice. And it might not be you, mom and dad. It might be a very older sibling, or a very older mature cousin, or someone at your church, or a neighbor. But find someone that they can talk to about their social media. Like I said, supervise. And I kind of like to use this analogy, inoculate, right? So with a vaccine, what do? We give a little bit of the bad germ to protect them against the full-blown disease. That's kind of how it is with social media and online activities. We want them to use it because, like we've all said, it can be used for good. We want them to do it in a safe environment. So we don't want to isolate them completely from technology, but we want to we want to inoculate them. So we want to supervise them and have them use social media and technology in little bitty bits supervised. The first computer we ever bought for our 3 children was in the family room. And I had a clear sight from cooking dinner to the computer screen. Was not used in their bedrooms. They didn't have a laptop in their bedrooms where it could not be monitored. So think about where they're going to use their social media. Think about the restrictions, go into settings, talk about it, supervise it. Ask them questions. Like I said, you have to be an active participant in this process. You can no longer, try to think, oh, that's not going to happen, or they're not going to be tempted to get to a website. Be involved and be proactive. This is a screenshot of Common Sense, the Common Sense website that we told you about. And like I said, you can look up reviews on here. You can filter this by age. You can see that over on the left, and you can filter it by cost. Lot of good information there. You can't do too much talking about this and oversharing. I would encourage you to role play a lot with your students. Ask them over dinner, hey, or have somebody else ask them, hey, what's your password to both, and see if they just give it out. So role play set up a role playing, have your neighbor, a trusted adult, ask your student some questions and see if your students overshare things. Lots of our students do, because they're very trusting. They're very concrete learners. They don't think anything bad's going to happen. So practice these scenarios with your students.
And also too, when you're thinking about oversharing, this is also a good time to review boundaries with your kids, and even like their body safety, because if they're interacting sometimes with people they don't know, they need to know that it's okay to come tell you that something's going on that makes them, feel like, oh my goodness, like this doesn't feel right. They need to know that even online, and just like in person, physical world and virtual world, that it's okay to say no to inappropriate requests. So when they're thinking about oversharing, acknowledge that, to have those discussions and not to reveal too much, their personal information, home address, what sports team they play for, school name, like all of that is oversharing.
Yeah. And we probably all need this graphic right here, right?
Oh,
we've all been guilty of this, because once again, it's easier to use the name of our favorite sports team, or our birthday, or our pet, or our street name, all things that people can look up and find out so easily. And then we just use the same word over and over again. We've all been guilty of this. So once again, parents, just like anything with parenting, it takes work, right? It's just hard work to dig in and, like Joy said, not share passwords, create passwords the right way, right? 7 to 10 characters, using all the special characters, numbers, and two-factor authentication whenever possible. These are some items, like I said, we want you to start early. So these are some objects that you can use with your students to start conversations and give them a concrete lesson in some of the things we've been talking about. Just like we said, things can be screenshotted. You can use a permanent marker to remind them, hey, that's permanent. That's hard to get off. It's going to take a while. So keep it clean, right? Right? When you're chatting with somebody online, that's just like speaking to them, and you need to keep it clean. would you want someone else reading your personal diary, right? Your journal. So once again, whatever you type, whatever you're sharing with others could be going to the World Wide Web, right? And we are going to make mistakes, just like a crumbled up paper. You're going to make mistakes. And sometimes in a digital world, though, those mistakes it's a digital footprint. It's a tattoo. It never is going away. So I can uncrumble the paper, but it's still going to be wrinkled. We can still fix it. We want them to be honest. We want them to talk to us. We want to say we're all going to make mistakes, but just know the wrinkles are still going to be there. And then another, a tattoo, it's permanent. It never goes away. A digital footprint. So these are just some everyday items you can use. Talk about unplugging, right? You can use that. And then you can also use, like I said, a Band-Aid. We're going to make mistakes, but we'll work on it together to how to fix them. And then this is just a good talking point to think.
So now we've kind of covered everything that we wanted to talk about. So in our presentation today on online safety, we really wanted to discuss these three major components: the controls and settings to be aware of, popular student apps, and how to communicate with your kids, because sometimes that's tough. So we hope you enjoyed those tips and learned some new things that will make it easier as you support your students with online safety. And before we finish, as promised, we wanted to share with you resources. So if you take out your phone and scan this QR code or type in that bit.ly URL, you will be able to see some awesome resources that we worked on. So you wouldn't have to feel like, oh my goodness, that was so much. We really streamlined them into like a one-page document. You've got links in there with everything that we talked about today.
All right, thank you, Joy and Kelly. I can definitely relate to the TikTok obsession. I'm on TikTok so much I don't even want to admit it. So with that, we're gonna go ahead and move to the Q&A. If you could just either use the raise hand button down on the bottom bar, or type your question into the chat, just so we can keep it a little bit orderly. And I'll try to make sure we go in order of the questions as they're asked. Anybody have questions? You can
Are
also
there any
just
other
unmute
questions in the
yourself
chat?
if you
Not
want.
in the chat.
Okay.
Got great feedback. Thank you, Mr. Thomas, for that. He said this is awesome.
Oh,
Will this
Great and
Thank you.
comprehensive. Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
that feedback. So happy. We appreciate you all coming to this lunch and learn too. So glad you found it to be very helpful.
Yeah.
I got a question.
Go ahead, Missy.
So I couldn't do the QR because I'm actually using the phone. So I typed in the bit.ly, I guess is what you called it, address.
I could put it in the chat too, if that helps.
And then, so like some of the links were working fine, but when it came down to like privacy and internet safety, and you click on like little kids, big kids, tweens, were those supposed to be links?
I can't hear the last part. It's so low. Like with
She was asking if some of the things in the handouts were supposed to be links, and I think I would have to.
So like if you go with the communication, like I was specifically interested because my kid is above 13. So I clicked on like the link 13
it
plus.
should be linked, like when I hover over it. Yeah.
But if you click
It
on
should
it, like
be
you
the
can
one that
see
isn't.
that, but if you click on the actual
it's
link,
not.
it says we can't find the page. So I was just wondering, is there some
Which,
That's something like-
which link?
Go under communication at the, it's like very bottom where it says
Okay.
Teen 13 plus.
Yep.
And like you can hover and see that, but most of the time when you see a link, you could just click on it, it takes you to the page. It doesn't
So
do that.
comments
I wonder, is there like
changing
some
there,
special
but-
thing where we're supposed to do like controlling?
No,
or-
I think that
'Cause the first two are-
the first two are fine. I think that very, one of those links, Common Sense Media changed their page.
Mhm,
But
that's what
I think
happened.
they were all linked to maybe specific articles on Common Sense Media.
Yeah.
So
what
yeah, that's
happened.
what it was. So everything, those probably all at the bottom were linked to something on Common Sense Media, which
So
that website's still there.
If you search, so it still takes you to the site. So if you search privacy and internet safety, it'll
Okay.
bring up those resources for you. So they have them divided by age group. So that's what those specific links were targeted towards, those specific age groups. But yeah, sometimes they change things.
Sometimes the
under-
web developer changes where things are located on their website, but
So still look under privacy and internet safety.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you for letting us know.
And this was wonderful. I've never actually been to a talk that got into this in depth because I don't really do a lot of social media, but I'm sure the kids do. So I really appreciate all the information.
thank you.
Thanks, Missy, for that question. Teresa sent me a message and asked if there's a way to filter YouTube. I'm assuming she's asking if there's a way to filter out certain videos on YouTube.
A way
Okay,
to,
here was something
a
about
way to
YouTube.
filter out certain videos on YouTube.
I know on YouTube you can go under settings. So, and I know for my youngest son who's like in pre-K, I have made him do like YouTube for kids, but still put filters on there. And usually when you start off that device, start off that particular app, you have to go in there and the adult is the one who signs in. They have to put their birth year and then you are allowed to control like which videos or things that you want the kids to see. So in YouTube, there are settings that you can go under and control. So once those settings are set, and you would have to be logged in, so it holds those settings. If you just go to Google and search YouTube, it's open to everything. So that's why it's important to be signed in, so those settings hold. But yes, you can control what content is coming in there.
Okay, awesome.
May I make a comment?
Yeah.
My name is Senia Johnson. Thank you for having this presentation. It was amazing. I just wanted to give a little tidbit about even YouTube Kids, just that parents still be aware that a lot of the content, although it is child-based, you can and will possibly run across content that you may deem inappropriate for your child. Unfortunately, I have seen things that I did not think was appropriate for my little boy. And it's unfortunate the type of content that people are putting out there. So please be mindful that although it is YouTube Kids, it's not always geared toward kids.
Yeah, that's a good point. Just because, a web developer says this app is appropriate for 13 and up, that doesn't mean, parent, that it's appropriate for your kid 13 and up, right?
Very true.
Right. So just because there's an age, it was like the old days when, we went to Blockbuster. Like I said, I'm probably the oldest person on this phone call. But when you went to Blockbuster and my kids wanted a PG-13 movie, well, and they were like, well, but I'm 13. I'm like, yeah, but you're still my kid and we're not watching that movie right now. So just because you got to start those talks early though with your students. Just because you reach this age, like I said, add on, it's the age plus my approval, plus you've shown responsibility in other areas.
Right.
And I'm going to place some things in the chat that I have shared with the counselor before, who was asking me about resources for YouTube. So things I'm putting in the chat is blocking content in YouTube Kids, creating a password in the YouTube Kids app, parental controls and settings for YouTube Kids, because there is that version that I was talking about that I use with my own son. There's a link on using YouTube parental controls and even how to activate parental controls on YouTube, on browsers and mobile devices. So I'm putting that in the chat, and the links did come over. So hopefully that will help you too with YouTube, since you asked that question.
Awesome, cool. And I'll make sure that these links get sent out in the follow-up email for everyone. So yeah, thanks, Tina, for that that comment. Thomas said, I agreed with Xenia on YouTube for kids. My son searched Disney and is now obsessed with compilation clips of all the evil scenes combined into one, and runs around with an attitude saying he's evil.
Yeah.
That's happened. Yeah, I
Yep.
know about that too. Mhm.
That's funny.
You gotta love our littles, right? Gotta love
And
them.
Yeah.
they find
They,
everything.
they do.
And they're
And it's like,
comical
the thing
too.
about
And-
YouTube is once they find one video, it's like everything.
And honestly, I don't know if I said this earlier, but when there's a will, there's a way with our students. I mean, if
That's why
You-
communication is so important. If you're having those conversations, yes, they may, you know, stumble across something, but at least you've prepared them about what should I do, you know?
mhm.
Definitely. Does anybody else have another question?
Make one suggestion.
Sure.
I am in the Henry County District, and so, but I have family up in Cobb, and there is another training that I had attended, and it was based on the Georgia laws for kids regarding social media and internet usage and all of that. And it was geared towards parents. But it was a really, really great resource that we did here in Henry. And there was actually a book. I have to find the book, but I would love to share the book and that link because I think that it's something that all counties, all parents need to be aware of, because our kids don't know that there are laws out there, that there are legal ramifications, you know, whether they're, you know, just sending pictures and sharing photos. There are things that, you know, are unlawful nowadays. And so I think that's a whole nother piece of the puzzle. So I would love to send that to someone and do as you need to, but thought I might share that additional resource as a community.
Yeah, Celia, if you just want to email that to me, I can make sure that that's included in the follow-up email. I would love that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, that
Thank
sounds like a great
you.
read.
Thank
I'd love
you.
to
That
know both
sounds
of them
wonderful.
myself, so.
Yeah.
Definitely. All right. Well, if there's no more questions, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Just a couple of reminders. Our next workshop at Special Needs Cobb is going to be Monday, October 3rd, and that is going to be an evening workshop starting at 6. And it's going to be on the NowComp waiver and family support. Our presenter for that is going to be Anna Mackey from the Bobby Dodd Institute. If you have a special needs young person in your life, you need to make sure that you are at this workshop, or that their parent or guardians at this workshop. It is super important information for their care. Also, for parents of children who are interested in higher education, the Cobb County Transition Services are having a transition conference that's currently going on. Their second session is coming up on October 4th, where they're going to be talking about technology and accommodations available in college for special needs students. I'm going to send the links for registration to both of these workshops in the follow-up email. So it's going to be jammed packed with stuff. So make sure you open it and look at everything. Kelly and Joy, do you have anything you want to add before we end the meeting?
No, thanks for having us. We appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you guys for coming and doing this. I know that this was a much needed workshop for some parents for sure. Yeah, and Kristen said that she also has the transition talks workshops as well, and I'm going to send that to everyone too. All right, so thank you guys so much for coming out today and spending your lunchtime with us. If you have any additional questions, you can contact Kelly and Joy. I'll send their email addresses to you in the follow-up email. If you have any questions related to workshops or speakers you would like to see or topics you would like to see workshops on, please give me an email. I'm always open to hearing parent suggestions. And we hope that you guys have a great rest of the day. All right.